All right, good morning again. My name is India Nielsen Barfus. I am a program manager in the Office of Outdoor Recreation. I'm going to be moderating the Q&A today following a presentation about avalanche awareness and safety. We are about halfway through Utah's second annual Avalanche Awareness Week, so our office is very excited to host today's two speakers, Chad and Cal. But before we get to that, of course, a couple housekeeping items that I'm sure everybody is familiar with. As I just mentioned, we are recording this presentation now. It's going to be available on our YouTube channel, and we will send it out later as well at the end of this month. So please feel free to share it with anyone in your network. Our goal with today's presentation is really to get this information out to as many people as possible. Hopefully help people have a safer winter, especially because we are anticipating really high, record high use this year. And because we are recording, we're going to be keeping everybody on mute, including during the Q&A. This slide, of course, shows you how to use the Q&A, the chat feature to go through the Q&A if you're not familiar with that in Google Meet. We'll start that about 9:15-ish, but feel free to type any questions into the chat before then. We will be randomly drawing the name of somebody who types a question into the chat to win a cool outdoorsy prize. So that is definitely an incentive to ask some great questions, and you've got the experts here to answer them today. That is it for housekeeping. I'm going to go ahead and introduce today's speakers and then turn the time over to them. So first of all, we have Chad Brackelsberg, who is the Executive Director of the Utah Avalanche Center. He joined the Utah Avalanche Center as Executive Director in July of 2017. He's responsible for communications, marketing, fundraising, strategy, and UAC business operations. Chad spent the prior 20 years in the corporate world working for large consulting companies in technology consulting, program and project management, and data center operations. And Chad is active in the Utah outdoor community. He's an avid backcountry skier, ski mountaineering racer, ultra runner, and mountain biker. Chad and his wife Emily have been organizing the Wasatch Powder Keg Ski Mountaineering Race for 10 years, and he is a founding member of the Utah Ski Mountaineering, a local nonprofit that's geared at growing the sport of ski mountaineering and organizing races. Chad has been on the board of the U.S. Ski Mountaineering Association for the past 6 years and has acted as coach of the U.S. National Ski Mountaineering team at the Ski Mountaineering World Championships since 2013. Our other speaker today is Cal Taylor. Cal is the president of the Utah Snowmobile Association. He's a husband, a father to 2 incredible children, and an outdoor enthusiast for as long as he can remember. Cal grew up hunting with his dad and brothers, fishing year-round at nearly all of Utah's lakes, boating, mountain biking, backpacking, skiing, almost all of Utah's resorts, and he's been snowmobiling since 2007. In 2007, Cal was doing trade work for older snowmobiles and thought it would be a great tool to access the backcountry for excellent skiing. But to this day, Cal has yet to use his snowmobiles for ski access because they're so much fun to use on their own. He joined the Davis County Snowmobile Club in 2008 just as a way to learn more about where to ride, who to go with, and he quickly found himself in a leadership role as the ride coordinator and then as vice president and president until 2014. As president of the Davis County chapter, he was also a board member for the Utah Snowmobile Association, and in 2016, he was elected to be vice president of the state association. He's been a delegate for the Utah Association as well as the International Snowmobile Council. He's taken avalanche rescue courses and has a current level 2 certificate from the American Institute for Avalanche Research and Education. Cal is looking forward to getting out on the snow with his family soon, if it ever snows again, but it sounds like the forecast is looking good up in the near future. So welcome to both of you. Thanks so much for being here and sharing this message. Just a quick reminder to the audience, you're welcome to add questions into the chat at any point, and Cal and Chad, feel free to go ahead and begin.
Awesome. Thanks, India.
That's great to meet everybody. Thanks for the good introduction.
Yes. Yeah, I guess we don't really need to introduce ourselves after that extremely good intro from India. So, but as she said, this is the second annual Avalanche Awareness Week, and it's something we're extremely excited about. This was something that the UAC worked with the Office of Outdoor Rec, UDOT, and state parks to actually get passed as a House bill in 2019 so that this could be something that goes on every year. And it's exciting because the state of Utah actually has, by doing this, they've recognized that avalanches are an important aspect of mountain living and of our state, and it's important for them as a state government to recognize that we need to do as much as we can to educate and make aware all of the citizens of Utah who could be impacted by avalanches. So really exciting this week. You can check out some other events that we have going on this week from the blog site on the UtahAvalancheCenter.org website. We will be doing live streams over a lot of different social media channels this week. If you go back, we were with Big Buddha on Fox 13 yesterday morning with some fun segments teaching him about avalanches. And we'll be on KSL. We don't know if it's going to air tomorrow or Friday during their morning show. As well as we'll be talking about avalanches on the Fox 13 Town Hall tonight. So lots of opportunities to do some more if you're interested in the next couple of days. So for those that aren't familiar with the UAC, our goal is to keep people safe in the backcountry. Doesn't matter how you travel, whether you ski, snowboard, snowbike, snowmobile, fat bike, snowshoe. Our goal is to give you the tools you need to make good decisions so that you can come home safe at the end of the day. We're a partnership with the Forest Service. So between our groups, we have 14 staff people from Moab all the way up to Logan. And it's an interesting partnership in the fact that the nonprofit is actually tasked with creating the budget and fundraising to help fund the Forest Service side. So the Forest Service side of the UAC is funded through the federal government, state and local governments, but 2/3 of the funding has to actually be raised by the nonprofit side. So in the nonprofit, we are really focused on education, awareness, and fundraising components. Really what we want to do is make sure that every day people go out, this is what they're experiencing. And when things go bad, we want to make sure that it has a happy ending like this. Accidents do happen. We want to make sure that people can come home safely, see their family, hug their kids at the end of a day in the mountains. We do this through 3 different programs. We have our forecasting. We provide daily avalanche forecasts from November to April for 8 regions across the state of Utah. And really these are for backcountry recreationalists. They're to teach people and to educate people about what are the dangers, where are the dangers, and how can they avoid these dangers each day that they go out. We provide on-snow education. So everything from training people on how to do rescues, trying to make it a little fun like we do in this picture, to multi-day level 1 classes where we teach about traveling through avalanche terrain, avoiding avalanche terrain, looking in the snow to understand what is causing avalanches. And then the last main program we have is our awareness. So we define awareness as when we're really talking about snow and avalanches versus out on the snow looking at snow. And so we reach around, in a traditional year that's not in a pandemic, we would reach about 8,000 people a year with in-person awareness talks. And that ranges from our Noble For You Go program, which is a program that the UAC developed in 2005 after a tragic accident that killed 3 teenagers 2 years prior. And that program is now delivered in 35 countries across the world. It's been translated into 11 languages. And we start presenting that program to people at a 7th or 8th grade education level. So our goal is that every kid who lives in or near the mountains understands that there is a risk of avalanches. And so this program helps us accomplish that. And then Cal, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so the Utah Snowmobile Association, we recently changed our outlook on what we do, and we focused on education because obviously there's a lot of youth that are coming into this sport. It's no longer just a man-dominated sport where you go out and hit the hills hard. I mean, there's still that, but we're bringing our families into this, our wives, the gear is changing. And so there's a lot of effort that goes into helping people understand and know what goes on. So what does the association do? We try to educate through avalanche classes. We do on the snow training. We have what's called a backcountry basics course where we are out in the snow and we get to teach people to dig. We also teach people where they can ride safely. There's 72 trailheads around the state of Utah. There's 13 major complexes. There's about 1,200 miles of groomed snowmobile trails in Utah's backcountry. And the biggest part of that is it takes us somewhere. It takes us to those backcountry avenues where we can get off trail and enjoy. But it comes with a price. We need to educate ourselves and share with one another so we can have a safe, fun time.
So what led to this talk and why we've been working with India, Pitt, Patrick, and Tara, and the rest of the rec team was really what we saw and the entire industry saw happening in March when the resorts closed, businesses closed. Things got crazy busy. From the March and April perspective, just in like the Cottonwoods, for example, those trailheads were packed. It looked like a holiday weekend. Locations for skiing and splitboarding and hiking were overwhelmed. Trailheads were packed. Backcountry gear was selling out. You couldn't buy a pair of skins. You couldn't buy a beacon, things like that in the spring. During a storm cycle in April, we actually had 50 avalanches in 48 hours, and a lot of those ended up being human triggered. So what we were seeing was a lot of risk we were feeling, and it really got us scared for what is going to happen this fall based on that. And so, Cal, what were you seeing in motorized trailheads in March and April?
Well, a lot of the same things. The parking lots were incredibly full. Users everywhere. The thing that we're seeing is what we call a dual user group, and that's the guys that ski like what I wanted to do. Right? They're grabbing their skis. The resorts are closed. They don't know what to do. They're grabbing up a snowmobile and they're taking off in the backcountry. And so we saw a huge influx in the parking lot areas and out on the mountain of people riding. One of the things that really stuck out to me last year, what I've never seen before, is how many people were out riding without basic gear like a helmet. I was totally taken back by that. This is a big, heavy machine, and you're going super fast, and people were not taking safety equipment precautions such as a helmet. And so it begs me to think, okay, well, what else have they disregarded in their safety aspects of this? So definitely those are some of the major things that I noticed out there.
Yeah, and what we're seeing already this year, we don't have a lot of snow out there. The motorized trailheads really aren't open yet. Not many people are out on snowmobiles or snow bikes, but at least in the places that there is snow, from a kind of skier perspective, things are busy already. Before Alta ski area opened, it was a normal occurrence, even in the middle of the week, for Alta's parking lot to be almost full of people just hiking up Alta to get some turns in. So we're seeing extremely busy trailheads already this year. Avalanche classes are sold out. Most all providers are selling out classes in less than a week. And some of these are classes that traditionally wouldn't have ever filled up before. Ski and snowboard sales are through the roof. SIA is estimated something around 140% increase in backcountry ski gear sales since March, but they also have only seen about a 60% increase in the sale of beacon, shovel, and probes. So as Cal just said, that's a red flag for us in itself, that people are buying more gear than maybe buying more ski gear and not buying their rescue gear. So as he said, what else are people not carrying? And we just don't really know that answer. Snowmobile sales have increased. As Cal mentioned, there's a lot of this split user group that's coming up. We're getting numerous calls and emails every week about people who are saying, I bought a snowmobile for the first time. Where do I go? Or I bought a snowmobile for the first time to ski. What do I do? And so we're going to see a lot more of that. And some of that's actually really good. It'll help disperse some of the traffic away from some of the more popular trailheads. But overall, we're totally expecting this trend to continue of a large number of users. And what that does is it has a secondary impact of it pushes people into different terrain. All of a sudden, people plan to go ride somewhere. They get there, there's other people there, there's tracks on the slope. They decide to go somewhere else. That maybe wasn't in their plan for the day. They maybe hadn't evaluated that terrain to know what risks there are in that terrain. So we have seen in the past in Utah accidents that have happened, and luckily they've had happy endings where nobody's been killed. But there's been some severe injuries in avalanches where the party has said, we didn't plan to go there that day. There were people in there. There was too many people in the area. We planned to go. So we just went a little further. And that was an area they weren't familiar with or weren't prepared to analyze the conditions for. And so larger numbers of people ends up putting a lot of different risks out there, from pushing people into this new terrain to people skiing or riding on top of one another, potentially triggering an avalanche that comes down on top of somebody. Luckily, Utah's never had avalanche fatalities where somebody's triggered an avalanche up high that's come down and killed somebody, but that's happened a couple times in Colorado. So it's a real possibility here as well. So all of these things lead to different decisions that people make and different actions that people make that could actually increase the risk that they're taking in the backcountry each time they go out. So what are we trying to do? Starting in May, the UAC started working with other educators, state parks, Office of Outdoor Rec, USA, and all these other groups to start putting together some plans of what can we do. It really wasn't known in May yet of what was going to happen with the pandemic. Would we be having in-person classes, or would we be completely virtual for everything? So we knew that we needed as much time as possible. So right away, we started down the path of virtual learning. We were really lucky. The UAC released in November 2018, we released the Know Before You Go e-learning program. So we already had 5 hours of free online education. But as I mentioned, we deliver the core Know Before You Go program to 8,000 people a year. We needed a solution for that. So we built another e-learning module based on the core Know Before You Go program that we released in early October, so that since we can't go to a school, since we can't go to community groups, now what we can offer them is, here's an e-learning course you can take, here's a full recorded presentation, we'll live stream something over your social media, or we can do a video conference presentation for your group. So we're trying to meet these groups any place we can to deliver this awareness to them. We've launched a new avalanche or trailhead awareness program. So we're showing up. We've already been initiated as it snowed, and we're going to be at various trailheads across the state throughout the winter, just talking with people. We'll have a tent set up. We'll have the forecast printed out. We'll talk to people about the forecast. We'll have the ability to provide transceiver practice. We'll have transceiver for people to replace their batteries if they need to. And so really just a chance to reach people where they enter the snow. We can't expect that people know about avalanche awareness and education. We can't expect that they're going to search it out. So instead, we're going to come to them. We're putting more effort on shop and retail outreach. So trying to go out and talk with shop owners and shop staff and parts departments about avalanches and get them the information that they need to talk to their customers. Very often, a shop staff person is the first point of contact that a new user has when they buy this gear. So whether you're buying a snowmobile, some parts for your snowmobile, skis and skins, that salesperson is the point of contact. So when that person has the knowledge to talk about some avalanche dangers, point people towards what gear they need to be safe, point people towards educational resources, things, all of those components, tell them that, make sure you read the forecast, where to get it. That just helps deliver that message. And there's, especially with parts departments and oftentimes in the motorized world, that's your trusted relationship. You go in and you sit down at the parts counter, and that's who you have your conversation with. And so it's a big outreach area for us this year, is getting more into that level of working with shops. We're training more educators. For the UAC classes now, we've brought in 10 new educators this year that will put through a training program to help deliver more classes. We're creating a lot of custom avalanche awareness specific videos throughout the season. We normally offer about 35 classes a year. Our goal this year is to offer 50 to 55 classes. So a huge increase in the number of classes that we'll be offering on snow to deliver these messages. And then creating new awareness messaging. So we're going to change pieces of our forecast. We're going to do more on social media. just any way that we can to reach more people with any avalanche awareness, education, or forecasting message that we can. And so, why is this really needed? There's 35 avalanche fatalities in the U.S. every year. In Utah, our average is 2.6. One of these is a motorized user. Having said that, in a 12-month period from January 2019 to 2020, we had 4 motorized fatalities in Utah. In that period, we had a total of 6 fatalities. All of those fatalities, somebody in the group or the victim were missing some or all of their core avalanche rescue gear, which is a beacon, shovel, and probe. This really got the UAC talking with other groups like USA of what can we do? Somehow our core messaging not being picked up by all these users because they're not carrying the gear they need to be safe and come home at the end of the day. And so it's stats like these that have led us to the Trailhead Awareness Program and increased avalanche classes and shop outreach, because we feel like that is a core miss that we have as an industry when people still don't understand what rescue gear they should have. And then we're seeing 2 other really unique things. We're seeing expert level riders getting into backcountry travel. With the advent of the snow bikes, we're seeing a lot of high level dirt bike riders now putting tracks on their bike and becoming backcountry riders in the winter. They are high level riders that have the riding skills to get deep into the mountains, but they don't always have the mountain skills and the avalanche skills to do that safely. So how can we reach this new high-end group of users? And similarly, in the human-powered world, we're seeing high-end people with high-end fitness, mountain bike racers, ultra runners, people like that buying gear, and they have this ability to go deep into the mountains and get into some very dangerous terrain without the knowledge to recognize the terrain that they're getting into. So all of these things have led to us evaluating our programs and adapting to make sure that we're reaching these groups. And Cal, what are some of the things we've been working on together for this?
Avalanche Center, they've done quite a bit, and probably one of the key factors is their Backcountry 101 class, where we'll take new user groups out on the snow and go through the course there. There's a couple other things for the motorized stuff. Obviously, the Know Before You Go online e-learning program. There's one that's motorized specific that's called Backcountry Ascender, and it's put into more like a game. And there's different steps and things that you can do to earn points as you spend time working on avalanche principles, and you do things, submit pictures, you win. You can win prizes and kickbacks from dealers and gear. So there's all kinds of series and tools. Mark or Chad, did you want me to talk about the USA's education class at this point, or wait?
Yeah, no, I've been doing a great job with some innovative ideas, and I think this is a perfect venue for that.
Perfect. So about 2 years ago, because obviously we saw the writing on the wall that motorized users are a big portion of the problem for the avalanche fatalities and causes of avalanches. So we reached out to our users. That's why we changed to focus more on education. And we have a program. We use some grants from the Recreational Trails Program and the Utah State Parks to purchase a trailer in which we do education classes that are at the trailhead. These classes are for club members and who are for the association. It's free. It's part of the benefit of being a member. And last year we taught about 300 people. We had 8 classes for different clubs around the region. And the nice thing is that we had kids, we had wives, we had teenagers, we had a wide range of people that we were able to educate with that. And we take them up at the trailhead. That's why we're partnering with UAC to do the trailhead education series, and then we'll take them out on the snow and show them where the problems are and we've seen a huge success in our learning there. And then obviously the next portion is on to companion rescue, level 1, avalanche rescue, all those things as well. So it's been huge for our association. The national levels and the international levels from the snowmobile world has really watched us. They have a close eye on us to what we're doing. And it was a huge success last year. And so we're looking again to repeat that same success. Obviously, we're planning on our classes to be full in that regard. We're planning on at least 10 classes. We may have more. Our association is all volunteer. So everybody has a normal job, and then we come and do this volunteer hours. So it's a love of the sport. It's a love of taking care of people and enjoying the backcountry. So we found huge success, but we're a little nervous for this year that people could be unexpected in the backcountry. So we want to help out and continue to educate.
Yeah, the last kind of piece of this is mentorship. One of the great ways to learn is you can start out with these introductory awareness classes, online education, which but it's not a substitute for taking a class. So get your class, but find a mentor. Find people. We should always be encouraging people to find a mentor in the backcountry, somebody who has the skills that can help guide you, because avalanche education it's a lifelong pursuit. It's not something you do once and you're done. You have to continually build those skills, refresh those skills, and practice with them as well. And the last piece that, on the image here is sort of what we look at as a curriculum of how do you progress through avalanche education as you get more experience in the backcountry. But a part that is often overlooked is the first aid part. You could be an expert in avalanche rescue, but if you don't have the first aid skills to save the life once because you can't perform basic first aid, the rest of those skills don't matter as much. So it's important to make sure that as you're talking to people or for yourself, that you're always addressing this first aid need as well. And just like in avalanche education, that's a progression from a wilderness first aid and CPR course to a full wilderness first responder course, where you get into these wilderness specific classes, and that's where you actually learn how to address these first aid needs in the mountains, when you're in the snow, when you're 5 miles from a trailhead, things like that. So it's important to get those skills and as well to practice with them. So I know there's a lot of people in the outdoor industry that attend these, and so one of the things we wanted to address is, what can the industry do, and how can the industry help out groups like USA and the UAC, other avalanche educators, but also more importantly, how can the outdoor industry help keep their customers safe and coming home and happy, I guess. So I talked a little bit about the staff training, about being able, using a group like UAC or USA to come in and talk with your staff to teach them how to talk to a customer about avalanche dangers. If somebody's buying a new sled or a new pair of skis, being able to say, well, do you have a beacon shovel probe? Have you taken a class? Making sure you can point people towards these education resources. We have pamphlets that we can provide that people can give to customers. And this actually doesn't just apply to brick and mortar stores. Online businesses fit all the same, including an Avalanche Awareness brochure in with a product being shipped is extremely beneficial. Or if you have a help center, a customer service number, having those people with the same knowledges as the floor staff. As I mentioned before, this is a lot of for new users, this is their first contact with the backcountry world. And so being able to provide some basic awareness to these customers is really important. I know one store that I have some friends that work at, they're estimating that in the past 3 months, 60% of their sales of ski gear, backcountry ski gear, have been to what we consider like a never ever group, people who have never been on skins before. And so all of these stats that we're learning from retailers and SIA and other groups help sort of solidify what we thought was going to happen back in April and May, and has us trying to prepare as much as we can for this season. We love to do avalanche awareness talks. As I said a couple times, the Know Before You Go program is perfect for this. It can be tailored towards a motorized or non-motorized crowd. It can be tailored from a 7th grade level all the way up to adult groups. We're not doing a lot of these in person this year, but we are doing those through social media, live stream, video conferencing, pretty much any way we can. We will work with you to get this message out. And then all of this, all of these programs, the Know Before You Go program is a free program. And so all of these require financial support. So even if you're not a shop that might be directly impacted or be able to provide the awareness messaging on your own, helping us out, for USA and UAC are both nonprofits. So helping support organizations that dedicate themselves to awareness and education helps us support those programs. Because it's a lot of work to develop these programs and to maintain them and to keep them current every year. So every year as things change, we need to update our programming, especially on years like this where we had in essence, everybody's reinventing how we do education and awareness in a pandemic world. So that's sort of the last way. And any other ideas people have, we're happy to work with any group on how we can assist them with delivering this message. It's not just what we're talking about here, but we're open to all kinds of creative ideas. And Cal, anything on USA's side that you're working directly with the industry on for an education or awareness perspective? Uh-oh, we might have lost Cal.
Yeah, it looks like his screen's frozen. I'm gonna send him a quick email, and I'm just gonna keep that question kind of ready to go for him. Oh, and it looks like he just left, so I'm sure he's about to get back on.
Okay. And I mean, if people do have questions, this is Cal and my contact information. We're happy to answer any questions people have. One of our hopes of this presentation was to create an open dialogue and discussion with people, users, people in the industry, about what they feel they could do to help out, where they feel the role of the industry is in avalanche education, where they feel the Utah Avalanche Center USA could do more to help them. And so, I know India was saying she's giving a nice little prize for great questions, and I'd love to create this not just a Q&A, but also as a little bit of a dialogue to discuss some of these things. And so that's all we have for now, but I appreciate everybody joining this morning. And we do, as India said, we have a weather pattern change coming. It looks like a couple little storms in the next couple weeks or week, but it looks like we could have a very white Christmas as well. So hopefully that produces what we think it will.
Thank you so much, Chad and Cal. And I saw a question coming through the chat, but quickly before we get to that, I just want to throw it back to Cal for a minute. If you want to talk about any different things that USA has been doing to work with the outdoor industry, just want to mention a couple of those, that'd be great.
Yeah, sorry, I just lost connection, so we're on my phone now. Anyways, we repeat that and just kind of connect there.
Yeah, definitely. Just mention any of the different initiatives or kind of programs or anything really that you're doing as USA to work with the outdoor industry to share this message or anything like that.
We're mostly working with our national organizations, the American Council of Snowmobile Associations. We're working with the Utah Snowmobile Association or Utah Avalanche Center. Sorry, we also work with ourselves, I guess, but we're working every route that we can so that we can, obviously, our dealers, the manufacturers, to try to promote. We're working a lot with ARI, that American
Sorry, I'm having a brain fart here. Institute of Avalanche Research and Education. So there's a lot of things that are going across the Western United States with all this avalanche awareness stuff. So we're trying to stay in the loop of all of these different groups so that we know. And obviously Facebook's a huge one for the snowmobilers. And so, you know, we also are paying attention to what Canada is doing. And so that obviously this is a universal program that we're trying to work together so that we can, you know, save lives. So.
Terrific, thank you. And we're getting more questions in the chat, so I'm just gonna kind of ask them in the question they're coming through. So Mike asks, Chad, you mentioned that with increased backcountry users, we're likely to see people choosing less safe terrain or second choice terrain to avoid crowds. Where do you personally see as the highest risks for this in the Wasatch?
Yeah, I don't know if I could point to any specific areas. I would almost point to all areas. So the accident that I referred to was from a couple of years ago, was actually in Meadow Chutes at Silver Fork, where it's close terrain, it's easy access from Solitude's bottom parking lot or from just road parking. And a user can be there in an hour to an hour and a half, and there's some complex terrain in there. It has a combination of lower angle safe terrain with some steep rollovers and terrain traps at the bottom. So as you go further up the canyon, that terrain gets more and more consequential. And you could really look at that in most all areas, you know, Red Pine, White Pine, Reynolds Peak, Raymond, Gobbler's Knob, they all have similar areas. They have areas where you could be safe or not, and playing into that is, you know, not just where the terrain gets steeper, but you may roll over a little bit to a different aspect. So you may plan on skiing a moderate danger southwest aspect, but there's people there, and you know that you just shifted a little bit, and all of a sudden you're on a west to northwest aspect that might have a buried persistent weak layer. And with what's happened in the past 3 weeks, you know, we had a nice big storm in mid-November. Season started really quick, but we've had nothing but cold temperatures since. And so the snow right now is extremely weak and faceted. It's really sugary. And so as we start adding snow on top of that, basically we're putting a sheet of plywood on top of marbles. And so we're going to create a dangerous snowpack. So knowing early season where there's snow and where there isn't becomes really important in years like this, that as we get snow, these kind of northwest to east aspects are going to be most likely quite dangerous and need to be avoided. So knowing where you're going and knowing what is underneath the snow at all times is going to be important for that this year. And Mike, I know that wasn't a perfect answer exactly, but it's a real, unfortunately there isn't a perfect answer to that question other than really saying all trailheads.
Great.
Also, I was going to say for the motorized use on that, we're seeing a huge increase in the Uintas, obviously because they're the ones that are reaching out, and that's the easiest to get to from the Wasatch. We're seeing a little bit of influx in the American Fork Canyon area too, but anyhow, there's some concerns. The Uintas are big country. There's lots of large runouts. There's certain areas that all often slide. And obviously this year is going to be different because there's going to be new places that slide where historically they haven't. And so more or less, that's another key factor to pay attention to the UAC's website and the forecast each day.
Thank you. Thank you both. Next question is from Travis. What influence do you think social media is having on this surge of traffic in the backcountry, and how are you reaching out across those platforms? I know shortly after this question came in, Cal, you mentioned some of your work on Facebook.
Yeah, social media is a double-edged sword. We all see pictures of people skiing, riding, snowmobiling, whatever it might be, big lines. Personally, I look at things and I'm like, wow, that was not a choice I would make today. But in the same breath, you see people posting safety messages as well. And so I think it's understanding and digesting what the source is that you're looking at, and knowing that just because that was okay for one person doesn't mean it's okay for you. What is your own risk tolerance? Everybody has a different degree of risk tolerance. And personally, mine is quite low. I always say I want to be doing this when I'm 80 years old. And in order to do that, my risk tolerance is quite low during the winter. I can choose then during the spring when the snowpack becomes stable to increase, some of the terrain I would ride on. I think it is social media, this has been studied by people who look at decision making and heuristic traps, and I have never really seen anybody who's come up with a conclusion of how do you teach people to properly digest social media. Personally, I feel it comes out sort of how you teach people to properly digest any media they read, looking at the sources of where is the article you read in the New York Times, is it a news article, or when you read about the end, was it sponsored by somebody? And so understanding where you're getting your information and their level of avalanche education, avalanche risk tolerance, things like that becomes really important. And the UAC and other educators are extremely active on social media, doing everything we can to deliver safety messaging to the community so that we can sort of be part of the discussion. We're doing a really fun photo contest this week as part of Avalanche Awareness Week that submit your favorite backcountry photo to win a prize, or one of it's 8 prizes. But one of the requirements is in the caption you have to write, what are you doing this year to help increase your avalanche awareness or education? So we're trying to use social media to actually get interaction, not just push information out, but make conversations occur so that people do have a little more opportunity on social media to understand, where the source of their information is coming from.
Cal, do you have anything to add to that?
Snowmobilers are obviously very vocal on social media, and so we find a lot of the same type of things are going on with the social media, and we have several that are on our board that have that we can reach out and pay attention to what's being said. Right now, what we're finding is, like, say the newbies, they're asking a ton of questions. They're saying, "Hey, I just picked up this snowmobile. What else do I need? Where do I go?" And so it gives us the opportunity to point them in the right direction, to get the right gear, to educate them on it, to push them into classes and that thing. So, there's a lot of bragging that goes on with the snowmobiling crowd. And so, to show those sweet lines, that's some of the things that we've seen. And, it's been good because the aspect has changed, but that's a very usable mode of information for us, is the social media aspect.
Thank you. Let's see, Cody asks, do the private companies, or I suppose which private companies, offer avalanche awareness classes? And if so, what's the response there?
Yeah, so if you, on the Utah Avalanche Center website, if you go to education, the second option is classes by other provider or other classes. And that is a great location that every provider in Utah can actually list their avalanche education classes there. So you can actually go out and see what everybody has right there. Other sources, you can go to avalanche.org, and there's a list of providers there that would then link you to individual sites. But there are lots of both motorized and non-motorized avalanche educators, and they're all, when you look at curriculum, Cal mentioned the ARI curriculum. There's really 2 main curriculum providers. One is AAI, American Avalanche Institute. The other main one is ARI. Personally, we recommend looking at one of those 2 accredited curriculums because they're both great classes, or they're both great curriculums. And all of them, when you're teaching that curriculum, they have to meet certain standards for their instructors, for how they teach, where they teach. So they're all quality and very safe and good providers. And they are also doing something similar. They're offering more classes this year. They do, most of those companies do offer more level 1 and 2 classes rather than the intro classes, but we are seeing some of them starting to do some lower level classes as well.
I'm going to take a little bit different spin on that approach where we talked about the education. And I read the question a little bit differently. So we've got a major company, corporation that's based out of Idaho. They're called Climb. It's a big K on their gear. They have seen the recognition of avalanches and what it does. And so they've done two things. They have a huge avalanche fund that's going to support, education across the United States. I think it's raised about $170,000 this year, this season so far. The second thing that they're doing is they have a backcountry team. They're sponsored riders, they're influencers. They're making all of them take the level 1 course. And so that's a huge step. They're just a clothing manufacturer, so they don't deal with avalanche safety gear, but that's a trend-setting thing that they'll be able to form, and everybody will follow in that same regard. And so we're going to see a lot more experts, snowmobile experts, getting more involved in avalanche safety, whereas a couple of years ago that was very taboo. You needed to be more of a rebel, and now it's more show your education to improve your circumstances.
Thank you. Sorry, Chad, did you have something to add to that?
Nope.
Okay. On to the next question then. Sean asks, with your focus on safety, have you taken a formal stance on certain beacons that face increasing pressures to issue recalls due to functionality or turn-off problems?
And Sean, it's an extremely complex question and a complex problem. Our official stance is truly that the Peeps BD beacon is a very quality product. I've used them for quite a few years. I've had the model that's in question. Some of the damage is visible. Some of the there's some of this on-off problem is caused by improper use. So one of our main stance is make sure that you inspect your gear every time you use it. Make sure you treat your gear like you would treat your phone. Most people get done skiing and their transceiver gets thrown into their backpack and not looked at again, where most people would never do that with their cell phone. And so, and then the third part of that is use it as directed by the manufacturer. So if you look at social media, there's a lot of examples on social media of a beacon turning off, and some of them are people putting it in their pocket where it's not in a dedicated pouch. So if you carry a beacon in your pocket, it needs to be in a pocket made for a beacon. It needs to be padded. It needs to have a reinforced tether so that in an avalanche, that pocket doesn't get ripped off, which BCA has proven on an externally sewn pocket. If you get in an avalanche, that pocket can get torn right off the pants. The other thing you'll see is they'll do a demonstration on social media and they're putting the beacon into the harness with the screen facing out. Other than the ARVA beacons, all beacons go into the harness with the screen facing in, which protects the screen. It also protects that button from being pressed by anything else on your clothing or the buckle on the harness. And so I've had numerous beacons myself from different manufacturers that have failed in different ways. I know a lot of people who have had corrosion in their beacon because they didn't take care of it and have had failures. So a lot of these problems do come down to proper care of your rescue equipment.
Yeah, we've gone right to the source, and we've had extensive conversation with Black Diamond and Peeps, and I'll echo what Chad has said here in the regard that it's really an individual response, and there are issues with certain beacons. I've had several of the different manufacturers' beacons. Actually, our association with our training program, we have every single manufacturer's safety equipment, and so we get to compare and test it. And there's quirks about all of them, and there's different things and problems, but like I say, it comes down to how you take care of your own gear. And do you treat it like it's a life-saving device, or do you just throw it as, hey, this is my, I'm done for the day. I throw it in my truck. I leave it in the trailer. I don't take care of them season to season. So, yeah, I mean, we're on top of that. But you just have to take care of your own gear, and whether they should pull everything from it. I mean, that's not my decision to be made there. So, but we've gone over the safety protocols on everything, and like I say, it basically comes down to user error. So, hope that helps.
Thank you. Taral asks, with families going out who haven't before, costs of equipment may seem prohibitive. Are there resources for finding quality safety gear at more affordable prices?
That's really hard, to be honest. There is a plethora of used rescue gear for sale on eBay, Craigslist, and things like that. And it's concerning to people in the industry because you look at it, a beacon is, whatever, $300, and somebody finds it on eBay for 50 or 100. The problem is you don't know how that was cared for. You don't know if it got wet. You don't know if it has corrosion. How old is it? A beacon, like any mechanical or electrical item, a beacon has a mean time to failure for a part. Just like a computer fan eventually wears out and you replace your computer over time, a beacon needs to be replaced every 4 to 5 years. And so it is a big problem. It is, the equipment is expensive. The cost is coming down. There's not a great solution to the price problem, other than, there are some manufacturers that are making lower cost beacons that they've taken out some of the advanced functionality. So you may not have, they still work, they still meet all the same standards, but they're simplified a little bit. The Tracker S, and one of the taglines for the Tracker S by BCA is S for simple. And because they've made it simple, they're able to sell that at a little lower cost. But there isn't a great solution, unfortunately. It is expensive, and I think the problem is if you're buying a snowmobile, splitboard, skis, you're already in a big investment. What's a little more? But if you're just renting snowshoes or going for a hike, now all of a sudden you have all this gear you have to carry, and yet snowshoers are actually at a very large risk, and we've had several snowshoe fatalities in Utah, and it's people who aren't very far off a road. Oftentimes they can see the road. There was a tragic fatality a few years ago in American Fork Canyon, where some BYU students were hiking. They weren't more than 200 meters from the road, and they were on a little side hill, but it was a steep side hill, and it slid, and a lady got pushed into the creek and buried quite deep, and unfortunately died. And so it really comes back down to knowing the terrain you're at, and that's where the Noble For You Go program, the whole goal is just to make you aware, so that when you go out there, you look at that hillside, you say, I learned in that Noble For You Go program that is avalanche terrain, so I'm not going to go there because I don't have a beacon shovel probe. So there's lots of places you can recreate in the mountains without entering avalanche terrain if you don't have the right gear.
I was just going to add to that. We have, as we've worked with these different manufacturers, there's 2 different manufacturers that are offering refurbished gear. Ortovox is one of those, and so they're trying to keep the price range around $100 as kind of an entry-level beacon. And so those are, like, say, remanufactured by the manufacturer, and I believe Backcountry Access does the same program with that. So if you watch for things and deals, those come across, and they're there's different opportunities to find cheaper gear out there. And I like to say one thing real quick is one of the things that can deter us, there's 3 components that lead to an avalanche, and one of the biggest one is terrain management. And so hopefully through awareness, there are places you can go snowshoeing and not be in avalanche country, but typically it's not the Wasatch Front, sadly. So, you got to get on those lower slopes. So, but yeah, there's a lot of possibilities. And obviously the biggest thing is to get the conversation started, get it rolling, tagging us in it, and then letting us to bring in more information. That's the benefit of social media, is that you can reach out to people. You don't have to know everything, because we've all got friends that do.
Thank you. And that's actually a great segue to a question that I have that kind of dovetails off of the last one in the chat was, how do you recommend that offices like ours or retailers or folks who are on this call can reach out to help with that kind of new Find a Mentor initiative that you're working with? Folks who are brand new or maybe returning to the backcountry might not even know where to start looking for a mentor. So how can we really help with that?
Yeah, unfortunately, there isn't sort of a formal mentorship program for avalanche education or an avalanche awareness and getting into how do you learn to backcountry ski? There's not just or snowmobile. There's not just the avalanche component, but there's where to go, how to navigate, how to read maps, what else to carry in your pack. So from an overall resources perspective, pointing people towards USA, the Utah Avalanche Center, but also the local guiding groups. Guiding in Europe, you don't go to a big resort in Europe. You go to the Graves, Zermatt, Verbier, all these resorts to ski in Europe. The first thing you do is typically hire a guide to show you around this resort. And in America, the idea of hiring a guide is seen as something that, why would I ever do that? Guides are for people who don't know what they're doing. But actually hiring a guide is such a great education perspective. Whether it's snowmobiling or skiing, they go out and show you terrain. They show you where it's safe, where it's dangerous. So the things that you don't learn in an avalanche class, you can learn by hiring a guide. As Cal mentioned, the snowmobile clubs are great resources. In the motorized world, very similar, where that's a great place to find a mentorship. Social media can be useful. It has to be used, with care. There's a lot of snowmobile and ski groups for various areas of Utah that are active on social media. Again, you have to figure out how you're going to, I guess, determine if that person that you're talking to on social media has an understanding as well. The UAC does monitor a lot of social media groups, and we respond when we feel things are misinterpreted or something dangerous is said. We will put out comments to try to clarify things. We don't though get into debates, and we try to avoid anything that could be sensitive. We try to just stick to factual responses versus, where should people go type thing. So it is hard. It's showing up at different. There's some events that you can get into. It's Backcountry Base Camp comes through Utah, which is a ski and snowboard splitboard event that you can go to and meet people. It is a very hard thing to find. And when I moved to Utah in 2002. I'd never backcountry skied. The way I did that is I signed up for a level 1 class. That's where I met some of my first ski partners, but I also found some mentorship from some of the instructors through that as well, and then had a resource that avalanche instructors are really good about giving out their personal email address and saying, email us after the class if you have any questions. And so while that may not be somebody you're going to get on the snow with, it is a great mentor in a little more of an informal.
Yeah, so I was just going to echo, Chad mentioned the clubs. So our association is based on mentorship. And so, they're obviously all the snow states, there's 22 of them. All of them have a state association with clubs underneath of them. And so that's a huge, huge resource that the snowmobile world, the motorized world has, are these clubs where, like I say, I was part of the club for a year and then became a ride coordinator. You have scheduled rides. Like I say, there's a ton of mentorship going on and teaching between one another. And that's a great forum because, it's your peers teaching each other. You learn a lot. And also, like Chad mentioned, the instructors that I had for my avalanche courses, I've kept in close contact. Yeah, I don't go ride with them all the time, but I'm always there to ask questions and, to ask them what's going on, to see stuff. So there's great possibilities in the motorized world for the mentorship. And like I say, that's through our clubs. They're pretty cheap to join, less than a tank of gas. I mean, it's about $50 a family. So it's a really great resource that's been in place for a long time to help out in all regards. Like I say, where to ride, all those questions are answered through the club scene.
And maybe just to spin that before we finish is, if you're a more experienced user, we're a community, we're all looking out for each other. Be a leader. And so when you're at a trailhead and you see somebody that might be struggling or having troubles, or you see somebody that doesn't really look like maybe they're going up a place that may not be safe, find a way to have a conversation with them and lead by example. And so, you can really do a lot of value for these new users who are out there by showing that this is a community versus showing that this is a competition, or I got to get out there because somebody might get to that line before I do. And so years like this, where we're going to have a lot more people around, we're really promoting people to treat this like a community and really be a part of it and be helpful and help, be, I guess, an informal mentor to these people, because it could save their life that day out there.
Terrific. Thank you. That's great. So now, for those of you who've asked questions, I've been putting your names in a bowl here. So thank you for everyone who added to the conversation and was engaging in the chat. That's very helpful. So outdoor prize goes to Sean from Soulrise. So, oops, Sean, if you could stay on the call for just a sec, and I'll get your email and follow up with you about that. But Chad and Cal, thank you both so much. This is great information. I'm super happy that we get to share it out. Hopefully, prevent some accidents or people going where perhaps they shouldn't go and whatnot. We really appreciate everything that you said today, and everyone for joining. Thank you so much for being part of this and hopefully sharing the message and getting out and enjoying the snow. We've got Pitt, who's a backcountry skier, in our office, and I'm more of a snowshoer kind of speed of person. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you to the Office of Outdoor Rec and everybody for attending.
Thank you. It's been fun. Hopefully we'll see you guys out there on the mountain.
Yes.